Hey guys, Bear here. Welcome back to Pickleball Kitchen. So you want to be a banger. I've done a lot of videos on how to beat the banger, but in case you want to be the one that hits the ball hard, here are some steps that you can take regardless of your skill level to increase the amount of power that you have and to get better third shot drives. Here we go. So here I am back at the baseline, and I want to start with the most boring thing first. I know it's boring, has nothing to do with hitting the ball hard, but if you want to get better drives, you have to worry about these things. I know, footwork comes first. You've heard me say it a billion times, feet first, swing later. But it's not just your feet, it's the positioning and the height of the ball as well. A lot of people get stuck with their footwork when that return to serve is coming over, and that makes sense. I've done it many times as well. The way you do this is you focus on nice long strides with your footwork so that you can get in position. Watch that ball, watch the trajectory, watch how it behaves so that you can get in position first and foremost. So I just backed up my camera a little bit. I'm going to show you what these body motions look like here. So Susan's going to feed me a ball, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get in position based on the return of that ball. Okay, so here it comes. You see how I'm making the stride, nice long strides here. See that? And I'm watching the ball, watching how it bounces, and because what this leads to is it leads to this concept of letting the ball bounce to the apex. You want to let the ball bounce as high as possible because that will give you the best look over the net. If the ball is really low, then it has to travel higher to get over the net, and you know what happens then. So I'm going to watch the ball very carefully, get my feet in position so that I can then, spoiler alert, actually strike at the ball. But believe it or not, it's not going to be my arm and my hand that comes through the shot first. This is big. If you want to learn how to hit the ball hard, you must do this. Let me change the camera real quick. This is going to be really awkward when you do this for the first time, but I want to convince you to, instead of using your arm and your hand first in terms of actually striking through the ball, I want you to use your bigger muscles first and foremost. So after I get done lining up to the shot and getting my feet in position, I want to use my trunk and my core to come through the ball first and let this paddle lag behind afterwards. Extremely powerful stuff. Your power does not always come from your arm and your hand, and it certainly doesn't necessarily come from your paddle either. It comes from your big muscles. The way you do this is by relaxing your arm, and when you load up to that shot and you're loading up to your drive, you want to make sure that your right foot is almost turned at an angle a little bit, because what this does is when you do this, this makes your shoulders and your hips turn towards the sideline. So when you do strike through the ball, all of that stuff rotates through and you get all of those bigger muscles coming through the shot. Big, big, big deal here, guys. Okay, so when we line up, you step, make sure that you've got some kind of turn towards the side. It doesn't have to be like you're playing baseball. Don't worry about that. Just a little bit of turn, shoulders, waist, pointing towards the side, so that when we do strike through the ball, we can rip all of that through, and that's where the power is going to come from. Let me give you a little example here, okay? So here comes the ball, okay? You see how my waist and my shoulders came through the shot, okay? See that? And the paddle it's almost like it's super heavy, and it kind of like it lags behind, and it's sort of late almost. You see how look at this right here. You see how it's coming through late? My shoulders and my hips come through, and then my paddle is last. Do that. Okay. We'll get into the swing part in a little bit, don't worry. Okay, line it up. Let that hips and the shoulders explode through the shot. Nice. Cool. What I'd like to do now is get into some of the details here with the swing. So I want you to notice that right foot here. You see this right foot? That is that anchor point that I was talking about. Once you get that anchor, it makes it so much easier to turn the hips and the shoulders to the side. You see that? You see how I go from open to closed? That right foot is what makes that easier. So it doesn't have to be really extreme, but do try to get a little bit of rotation there so that when you do come through, let me just delete this real quick. When you do come through here, all of that rotation can explode through. You see that? You see now how my shoulders and my waist is pointed forward now. That explosion is where the vast majority of your power is going to come from, okay? So then I even come up on my right foot to get all of that weight into the shot. So you see how the right foot, see how I'm on my toe now? That means there's no weight on that foot. There can't be. So all of that goes into the ball, and that is the basis of an extremely powerful drive. All right, so that was step 2. Step 3, let's focus on the actual arm now. So this is a smaller part of it, believe it or not, but once we get in position and we get that hip and that shoulder, that trunk rotated through the shot, what do we do with our actual paddle? I think it's important to keep this a little bit natural. Do what is natural for you, but you do want to pay attention to how the ball behaves. Okay, so a lot of people, I'll tell you a big mistake that people make with their drive is they come over the top. So what they do is they come back and then they kind of come over it like this. It's almost like kind of like a baseball swing. You do want to make sure that when you come through the shot, you are almost trying to hit your leg as you're coming through. That's super, super important. This will help to kind of hone in your sights so that you're hitting the ball neutrally. You want to get to the point where you can stand on the center line and you're hitting straight shots down the center line, and that will really, really help. When you do swing through the ball, make sure you take a large enough backswing. A great tip, it's a good thing I have a fence here, a great tip is when you're coming back on with your paddle, you almost want to feel like you're tapping a fence behind you. That's a great sign that you're getting enough backswing on the shot. And then when you do come through, again, let that arm lag behind as your hips and as your trunk rotates through, and then snap at the very last moment. To get more top spin on your drives, when you do come through the shot, let me scoot up closer to you here. When you do come through, try to brush up and finish up here like this. It's almost like you're trying to block out anything, being able to hear anything out of your left ear. Obviously, if you're a lefty, it's over here on your right ear. Do that, finish up here. Try to whip up on the ball like this. That'll give you more top spin. Let me give you some examples here. So I want to watch the swing. Nice. So there's actually 2 things that I want to mention now with this shot in particular. First of all, the one thing is to stop swinging so hard at the ball. I mentioned this in the video. Unfortunately, there was a big gust of wind and it destroyed the audio. So when you are swinging through the ball, be very careful about trying to swing so hard with your arm. You will get way more value out of using your bigger muscles than you will out of just swinging hard with your arm. It's just not going to happen. Not only that, but when you do try to swing too hard with your arm, all you end up doing is just losing control. So I want you to just watch the shot again. I'm not swinging very hard with my arm. I'm really not. All I'm focused on is this rotation coming through. That's the big thing that I'm worried about. The second thing here, and that's kind of a little bit of a dash of authenticity here, this is an area that I personally can kind of have trouble with, and that is letting the ball get too far behind me. I want you to notice where this ball is. It's right, it's definitely out in front of me, but you do want to try to get them further out in front of you, like here. That will really help. It will help you to get more power because the paddle will have a longer motion, and it's much easier to line up this rotation once the ball is further out in front of you. So if the balls are getting like way behind you here, that's definitely not good. But again, like this is an area that I can have trouble with sometimes. So if you have trouble with it too,
I am in your boat. But yeah, those are the things I want to mention. Stop trying to swing so hard at the ball. You're just going to lose control and you're not getting that much value out of it.
Okay, last tip here. Follow up. Being a banger, being someone who hits the ball hard, means nothing if you're not actually following up on the shot. Oftentimes what this means is either you do another 5th shot attack or you do a 5th shot drop. Okay, so let me show you here. Hopefully the camera will show this, but so here comes the ball. Okay, that was just a winner. I'll try to actually hit it at my assistant here. Notice how I followed up. Typically, what will happen with a 3rd shot drive is that you will follow up with a 5th shot drop. Very, very important. The most effective, typically, type of 5th shot drop is going to be cross court. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move over to the left side of the court here, and we're going to play skinny. I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, that's typically what it looks like when you're doing a 5th shot drop on a 3rd shot drive. That ball's broken. Hey, look at this. Oh, that's a double Pac-Man. Hey, that's a double crack. These are really rare. So you see the double? We call these Pac-Man because wonka wonka wonka, right? Not necessarily because I just hit it really hard, but you know, that's what happens sometimes. A double crack.
I thought you guys would appreciate that. Those are fun little things that happen on the court when I'm recording. I have seen people do that before with these kinds of drives, but that ball was definitely a little bit cracked before I hit it. But don't think that I'm, cracking fresh pickleballs right out the bag or anything. But there is one other follow-up that I want to show you that is really, really important. That is, of course, just more drives. So you can just keep hitting the same drive over and over again. The problem is, though, is that sometimes because of the speed of the block coming back at you, it can be hard to get your footwork set. So again, this foot comes forward, as we talked about. Got a nice anchor foot back here, hips and shoulders pointed off towards the side. And then as I progress through the shot here, you can see that these things rotate through, right? But if that block comes back at you quickly, then sometimes you're not going to have time to get back into that footwork. So we do an open stance drive. So this is an open stance, and the ball is coming back so quickly that I don't have time to get into position. So I hit it like that instead. Okay, very, very common to do. Lots of topspin motion. You see that stroke? That's a topspin stroke right there. And you can see how the weight transfers back like that. Typically, you really don't want to hit on your back foot, but I mean, if you're in a pickle like this, sometimes that's what's going to happen. So let me play through this clip as well. So same deal, but sometimes you'll get a combination of these things. So you'll have your typical closed off stance there, and you'll have more of an open stance, but then you go into this clip, traditional drive like I've been teaching you here, and then a shuffle over, then more traditional, but it's the footwork that really counts when you're in these types of situations. The other follow-up, of course, is the attack at the net. Click up here if you want to learn how to attack at the net. I did not have time in this video to go over any of that, sadly, but if I go over here to this open court, I want to warn you about something. It's great to attack right here at the kitchen line because your opponent is so close to you, but be very, very careful about attacking back here in the middle of the court. This can be extremely dangerous. The reason is because your opponent has better angles for the block. Okay, so if we go here and we go here, if you're standing in this area, now these blocks are coming so far, are coming super wide, right? But if you're closer up here, then these shots are a lot closer to you. Also, your opponent has just more time. So be very careful about banging when you're coming up into that midcourt, typically it's better just to concede and dink, or you can try to go for like a roll over here on down the middle. But at this point in the video, I was quite exhausted.
If you aren't like this when you're done doing drives, you're not doing them right. Thanks for joining me, guys. Do those drills. It'll really help. It'll help you to hit the ball harder. Use your big muscles. Stop trying to swing so hard at the ball. Get those feet in position. Remember those fundamental mechanics. Do the mechanics first, then you can focus on the fancy things. Have discipline. Thanks for joining me, guys. I'll see you next time.